Yep.
Great. Okay, well, welcome to the meeting. We're running a little bit behind, but we'll catch up. So, Dave, if you could do the curric here, please.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kine ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atikura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora.
Thanks, Dave. Apologies, please.
We have apologies from Claire Buchanan, Councillor Ian McKenzie for lateness. He may not make the meeting at all. We'll wait and see. And Jess Hobbs.
Right. So I'll move those apologies be accepted. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Any extraordinary business that we know about? Anyone? Nothing here. Anything comes up, we'll deal with that. Register of interest, which, as I've said, everyone keeps that up to date. That's it. So confirmation of the minutes.
Just a register of interests, Mr. Chairman, as dead on for myself, HH Week.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm a trustee of that.
Okay.
And I'd like to add that I'm an MHV shareholder. It's an item number 9, application 6.
Thank you. We'll record that, and we'll just, when we get to the applications, we'll have a talk about that. So I move the minutes, true record of the meeting. Is there any comment in the minutes that anyone that wanted to raise in business on the accuracy?
Bill, can I just, in point 8, the Whitcomb Land Care Group, following Paul's presentation last month alongside Megan, we had a bit of a discussion on coordination of projects. It's quite a big theme for up there.
Yeah.
And whilst it didn't get picked up in the minutes, I do wonder whether there's an opportunity to talk about coordination when there's big amounts of money and projects, and making sure that everybody's aware of what each other are doing. We're finding that with a lot of the catchment groups. So ECAN's doing something, and say ADC or one of the agencies are doing something, to be as effective as we can, especially when the community has a role in all of that. Coordination is quite a key component. Otherwise you find that there's either duplication or significant gaps. I'm just not sure where to record it, but Councillor McKenzie was talking about it as well.
It was a good point. We might actually, we'll pass the minutes and then we'll talk about it. So everyone, I'll move the minutes as true and accurate. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So addressing Andrew's point, so are you looking that we should have, it's quite loud this, isn't it? A coordination of ideas when, well, you've got that with the catchment groups, haven't you already? So you're just saying if there's other areas that cross each other for purpose, or what are you driving at? Give me an example.
So some of it is, like, we've got money that we want to distribute, or we're obligated to distribute, and then there's other, like, so the Manawa Energy money to distribute, but it all seems to be distributed somewhat in isolation, and not saying that we're trying to control everything, but sometimes a coordinated approach will better serve long-term outcomes, because we're doing this, but the bigger picture doesn't seem to be getting taken seriously. So if you look at the Rangitata Revival and that huge piece of work that they did there was a degree of coordination across agencies. Maybe the community could have been engaged with better. But I think we need to start thinking more strategically about how to be efficient and effective with our funding and our people's times and our overarching vision. And I think some of that, lots of ECAN, people come and go, projects start and stop. The one consistent is the community. So if we could maybe encourage ECAN and that to take a more coordinated approach to some of the projects that are in catchments, that would be helpful.
I just wondering, Richard, Councillor Wilson, if you've got any comment with biodiversity within the council, whether do you think there's an issue there or something we could do?
We're trying to bring any funding options to the Biodiversity Action Group, which is actually ADBAG it's called, because all the different groups are there, and then trying to use it as a forum to put the information out so that people do understand it. But there's no sort of, perhaps that's what Angela's talking about, the other way of once people have a project that we're all asked for money to it, but then there's perhaps not a great coordination between how that money is allocated or whether it's this, this long-term viability of it works, isn't it?
Any suggestions of how you can see that happen?
ADBAG, well, hopefully we can, keep building that information dispersal is almost the word.
Artie, sorry, just wondering if Artie's got any thoughts from the funding group. Sorry, I know Artie, you've been involved in the Ashburton funding group, haven't you? Funders group?
I've worked with them a bit, yeah.
Yes. Do you think they would have a place?
Ashburton Funding Forum, yeah.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, they may be interested to be involved as well.
Yeah.
And in regarding coordination, potentially coordination between us and ADBAG, because the Council Biodiversity Funding opens on February, and we're usually doing it the second part of the year. So maybe try to coordinate those fundings together.
You haven't got any comment, Chris, have you?
Yes, apologies for lateness. Yeah, I think what we're trying to achieve in Mid-Canterbury, the overarching vision, with the funding, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to create things that are scalable, or just get them off the ground and get them up and running, or are they? It's a bit of a patchwork quilt sort of approach at the moment. I just don't know. There's nothing worse than one size fits all and coming up with an overall concept. But I think the words, is it scalable or something like that? We need to get a bit of alignment between do we want the regional council to do it? Do we want to give the direction from the zone committee, or from the district council perspective, their group? What are we trying to achieve collectively, so that those dollars do go the greatest distance?
Well, I understand what everyone's saying, and maybe to kick it off, if we approve or don't approve the projects that are in front of us, we can then maybe send that to the Ashburton District Council and to even Ashburton Funding, so they know where, and even the Catchment Collective, so they know the projects we have supported, and if they come to them again, and maybe we'll get that flow back the other way. When you make a decision, say at ADC, you might flow back to us, because it'll be the strength in numbers, isn't it? Yeah, no, that's a good point, Ange, so hopefully we'll do something. First application.
Well, we've got no correspondence. We've been through that, haven't we? Yeah, okay. So, yes, we are now going to, the main purpose of this meeting is going through our funding applications. And so we're now going to welcome Will Wright to come up and talk about his group's application, which is the Ashburton Forks Catchment Group. So, come on up, Will.
Yeah, I'll just declare my conflict of interest, and I won't be participating in any voting on this particular application, if that's okay. But I might join Will to answer any questions if there's any.
That'd be good.
Noted, thank you.
Cool. And just before you start, Will, just make it clear to everyone that it's not a requirement that as part of an application that applicants come and do a presentation to us, but it's very helpful if they can. So unfortunately there are some that aren't able to be here because of work commitments, but we'll go with what we can, and thank you, Will.
Can I declare too, because based on previous conversations as coordinator of MCCC, I've been asked to declare, so I need to do that also.
Oh, welcome, Will. So we've had your application, we've seen the writing, so if you'd just like to talk to it and the bits that you think's important, or whatever you like to, just fire away. Thanks.
That's good. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me along today. As I was just introduced, my name's Will Wright, and I facilitate the Ashburton Forks Catchment Group. I'm here today regarding the Forks Group's application to the Zone Committee for funding for 15 A220 auto traps. This funding application totals $8,480. If successful, each group member will have access to an auto trap. These traps will be owned and coordinated by the group, not the members. So just a bit about our group. We were formed a year and a half ago. Our catchment group's broad footprint lies in the Ashburton Forks, Staveley and Alford Forest area. We're sort of sandwiched in between the RDR, Thompson's Track, with the two main branches of the Ashburton either side. Our group covers approximately 11,500 hectares of fairly intensive farmland. A committee of community-focused farmers lead us, of which one of them's here today. Excuse me. Early engagement has been incredibly strong, with positive feedback from all members involved. Out of the 32 farms within the 11,500 hectares, 20 have signed up and are paying members of our group. The group's farmers have direct river frontage of 80 kilometres of Taylor's Stream and Boyers Stream and the Ashburton Rivers. So we're right in there amongst those pretty special waterways. We have the Foothills Catchment Group, Staveley Camp and Alford Landcare groups above us, and the newly formed Green Street Catchment Group below us. All of these groups are undertaking pest and predator control in some way, shape or form, and we're really excited as to how we can work with these groups more in the future, along with other entities, whoever they may be. So our group's location has driven our members to focus on long-term goals of biodiversity and water quality. The group is focused on getting stuff done, keeping it simple, and forging our own pathway. So these two workflows have got the ball rolling for us. Firstly, we've started a monthly water quality monitoring program in which farmers take samples from selected water bodies across our catchment. Sampling will provide a greater understanding of what is happening within our catchment, and it's already informing targeted mitigations. In my opinion, there's some reasonably unengaged farmers who are now really, really keen to get plants in the ground, which is pretty exciting. From sort of starting cold. So along with this water quality monitoring program, the group's been working on predator and pest control. DOC advised the group that their location, and it's sort of obvious where we are, but their location means that the response from a native bird standpoint to pest and predator control has a huge amount of potential. You're down here, hit a cricket ball at the Mount Somers bush there from where we are. Many people have, many people have already undertaken significant planting projects. So along with the potential for improved bird song, the group has identified pest and predator control as a crucial piece to the puzzle and successful plant establishment. We've got many examples of farmers who have had a crack on the planting front and only to have their hard work nailed by hares and possums, which is pretty disheartening for farmers who are having a go. We're already starting to see the benefits of the work we're doing and working together. Just the other day, we had group members collaborating on, there's a few of them up there who've got magpie traps, and two of them are catching, one of them's catching magpies, two of them certainly aren't, and they were feeding off each other as to, good ways to, good tips and tricks to getting magpies, which I thought was pretty key. We also, I sent a text out the other day to our group members just to update me with their tallies, and we had great feedback, a bit of banter, but people sort of feeding off each other. We had 7 responses, of different tallies, and bit of chat around that, which is quite neat. So over the last year and a half, the group have removed 3,355 pests and predators, and we know where they've come from and where they've been removed from. We know which farms they've come from. This tally includes 1 stoat, 1 ferret, 16 cats, 1,700 hares, 1,460 possums, and 94 magpies, along with other animals. Over the 11,500 hectares, that the group covers. This works out to be an animal every 3.4 hectares. That's 186 animals a month over our lifetime, or 6 animals a day. So the Ashburton Forks Catchment Group recognise that one of the big barriers to pest and predator control is time. They also understand that having any meaningful impact will require us to record where we're taking animals and to be coordinated about how we're doing it. Members of the group met with DOC in early January, and here we were given a demonstration of how technology such as the auto trap could play an important role in solving some of the time-consuming issues of constantly checking trap lines. The auto trap is self-setting, it's very robust. It lasts 6 months between services. The traps can account for possums, stoats, ferrets, weasels, rats and mice. The traps also have functionality that enable them to record kills both from a species standpoint and a numbers standpoint, which is really helpful. The group recently obtained 5 auto traps, which we've distributed amongst various members. Initial feedback had been that the trap's functionality and effectiveness have been incredibly impressive. Traps are consistently taking, give or take, well, we've sort of said 2 to 5, but let's say 2 possums a week, depending on location. And we just see great potential if we ramp this up to 20 traps, how much damage we can actually do on the ground up there. Along with the possums, like they absolutely nail rats and mice. It's pretty impressive how effective they are. And often you don't see any trace apart from a bit of fluff. They completely smoke them really. So as well as being extremely effective, we see the traps as a great engagement tool. I guess we're sort of moving towards the crossroads of our catchment group, and we want to really light the fire for future pest and predator control amongst our group. We feel like we're there or thereabouts, but we think this would really take it to the next level. Our group has already achieved a great deal. Look, with all due respect, we're actually doing things on the ground. We're getting things done as a group. We hope that funding these traps will allow us to continue to kick goals and serve our community. So that's me, but thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Excellent. We've got some questions for Will. Neil.
Certainly, you'll probably work it out. How much is each trap, Will?
I should have written that down, Neil. They're around $500. Yeah.
$475.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. There's a bait that's not worth anything that you've got to top them up with, and the batteries plug into a cell phone charger. So you just charge them up once every 5 or 6 months, and they're good to go again. Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly impressive numbers of possums already trapped or killed. Well, it's good. Question: Where would you start this? At one end of the catchment and work your way up or down, or top to bottom, or have you thought where you do your trapping?
I guess what we considered was, well, we've got like a pretty strong coverage right from north to south, east to west, Bill. So we were keen to get a trap out to each group member for starters. And I think as much as anything, like most of the people who have got one in their hands want to buy another one. So we sort of see it as a tool to sort of, as I say, light that spark. But we're pretty keen to be coordinated in our approach, and we obviously see the rivers as the real area for where the highways of these animals. So for starters, I think we'd get them around to everyone, get some training, and then look at our options probably.
Can I just add to that? Possums seems to they follow trees or they follow trails, and we've got one of them, and it's been doing a great job. But we've got 2 sides of every river, so although we think of so many kilometres of river, what Will's talking about is we've got both sides, and possums can't get from one side to the other, so we do need to put them in various locations. The one that we've got, it's quite quite good. I've shot many possums sitting in the tree that it's in, and they just keep on coming back to that same location. So they're pretty reliable.
And they sit, like, you can sit a trap in a spot, and like, it's amazing. You'd think that the possum would be, sorry to be gruesome, but you'd think the possum would care that his brother's just had his head stoved in, but yeah, it doesn't seem to bother them that there's possums at the bottom of the tree. They just keep coming back. Yeah.
Is there any other questions? What I'd like to do as a group, because there's a few people who have declared their interest, is we might approve the projects as they come up and then come back and discuss the money that we'll allocate to them, so then we know what we've got, and then we can, so we don't approve the money, then we get to the end and we've used it all up. So if everyone's happy, we can vote. We'll just vote whether we approve the project. Adi.
We seem in terms of requests to be over allocated, so shouldn't we discuss at the end when we have everything in front of us?
What I'd like to do, because some people can participate in this conversation, not in the next one, if we just agree to approve it, and then we can agree to allocate the money that we're going to give to the project. So, because it's only over allocated because one of the applications is a huge number, but the other numbers are not that big. And if we approved all of them until we got to Mayfield Valletta, we're 42 out of our 50. So if everyone's happy, we'll just either vote for or against, and then we'll discuss the money at the end, which will virtually do what you're saying, Artie. We'll then see what our bucket of cash is and how we want to allocate it, but we've approved that project, so we'll get some funding, full or not. Does that make sense?
If that's the case, there is something I wanted to discuss, because we're talking about, with us being a small funder, something that would work for the long term. And I think because we keep getting more and more requests for traps, I think possibly what's best for us is to support trap libraries, 1 or 2 projects, instead keeping funding more and more and more projects, individual ones that keep asking for traps. I wonder if that's not potentially a better option.
My comment would be that I think in a catchment group community with members, essentially that's to a degree what you are doing, similar to a trapping library. So they could get, if they got finished somewhere and you tidied up an area, for example, then they get distributed within a group, potentially.
But if we look at the entire district, at the moment we're talking about a certain catchment group, we have multiple ones. So it's only this catchment group. What if Heinz now want traps, they'll ask for us for another funding. If you're talking about something at the MCCC level, then it makes sense. But individual catchment groups are still multiple ones across the district, aren't they?
I understand what you're saying, and you do raise an interesting point, but I think what we should do is deal with what we've got in front of us today, and then make a policy for the next, when we set our next round of funding, how we're going to handle traps, because as you say, if they keep coming an issue, maybe we do support a trap bank or something. But I think we don't know who's going to apply next time, but we've got some applications in front of us that we can deal to now, so while acknowledging what you're saying makes sense, I think in the long term it will, but in the short term we should deal with these ones individually, if you're happy with that. Richard?
Yep, I'd support it, but as I say, the money we discussed there at the end, I think one of the comments that were made was that the people have planted stuff and it's been eaten. Once you've got the pests down, people, because the farmers in this catchment will plant stuff and they'll plant it in their own pocket, because that's just how it works, and look after it. But this could be the bit that gets some of them, the thing that just catches them into this idea of better planting and that. So in predator management, is a lot of young people will do it too. A lot of farmers' sons and daughters will look out there doing it, so you actually could catch them into the same thing, and that's where I would see this being a good starting point, because it's a good place for young boys to start. Then they'll plant and it just moves forward from there.
Well, if there's no more...
Sydney has said that
Oh, sorry.
Sydney agrees with what you're proposing.
Okay. Sydney agrees. So I move that we accept this application and discuss the amount of money we allocate to it at the end of the session. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Sustained.
Thanks very much.
So the next project we're looking at is the Chalmers Avenue River Development. That's on page 13 of your agenda. Unfortunately, Ross Hawthorne can't be here. He has given us a few comments which are on the desk in front of you. And Sydney, I've put them in the chat on the Teams link. It's just a one-pager with some photos. Looks like that. Shall I read it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi Dave, thank you for the offer to attend, but regretfully I can't make it. The total number of plants put in is now 4,900. I haven't counted the carracks. I would like to have all the planting finished by next winter. All the old man's bed has now been cleared off the trees, including the old man's bed mixed with the Asian willow tangle near Chalmers Avenue. We have had several school groups and boys brigade involved with planting, and one of the young boys has decided to join our group. The ivy is a major issue and covers quite a lot of the area, so if we're unable to get it killed, then the area covered in it won't be able to be planted. I've tried a few sprays but without success, which is why we need a local contractor. There are also some very large silver poplars and other weed trees that need poisoning. If the poplars are cut down without poisoning them first, then they create a major problem with all the saplings that come up from the roots. Many of the plants seem to be thriving in the area. It's surprising how fast some trees are growing. Here are two photos that we took last week, one of a ribbonwood planted nearly 2 years ago. It's taller than I am, and the other a Pittosporum 3 years old. A lot of the trees are thriving in the area. Kindest regards, Ross Hawthorne.
Just any questions, comments? The first one I'd make is included in this application is the Wakanui hapu. So is that we weren't sure if that was a runner.
Oh, you're talking about the action plan
Yeah.
action plan alignment.
So they're going to spend money. We will focus on several water bodies. They've got.
Oh, yeah, so that's what's written in our action plan, but he's really referring to the Hakatiri Ashburton River. That's just the wording that's in our action plan because it has Wakanui and Carter's Creek. And
So that's not what you mean.
no, that's because that says how does it align with the action plan, but
Okay.
it just aligns with the Ashburton River part.
Okay.
Yep. So, bit of a red herring.
Yeah. So we're funding plants here. What do we feel about this one?
I'd like to just make a comment from a personal approach. I've attended a couple of the plantings days, and I would encourage anybody to go along because they really are doing it to best practice. He does have a small community following behind him, but he could achieve his goal of planting that area a lot quicker with more volunteers and more help. He's taking a responsible approach in terms of the ivy because I do understand that what's required to get rid of it is relatively potent. So, and I think there's spray licenses and different things that you have to adhere to nowadays. So I recognise what he's doing there. He's also doing the ongoing maintenance. So there's a lot of stuff that is happening behind the scenes that's not coming to the table in a funding that goes over and above on behalf of the community. So I'm a big fan of this one.
Hardy?
I think this project ticks several boxes because it also, we had a talk recently about native corridors and their importance, and this is exactly one of them. And he also works, there is the educational aspect because he works with several schools. So I think this project definitely ticks more than one box.
Sydney, have you got a comment? Has she written one? Or? Yeah, she's
Yes, I did. I think the same. I think we should accept and approve this project and then decide the amount after we have considered all the other applications.
All right, so, good, Artie, you'll move that. We'll approve this, seconded by Chris, all in favour? Aye, against, carried.
Just on that one, I need to just spend a little bit of time. I was just looking in the full funding application. That amount might be in GST inclusive, but I'll check up on that before we get to that part. So the next one is on page 15. It's the Awa Rata Reserve and Pudding Hill Reserve Predator Management. So Mike Prince is unavailable. He's busy in the classroom. He sent me a presentation which is on your desk, and again, Sydney, it's in the chat, which shows the extent of the trapping operation. I guess it's quite extensive, and some interesting photos. I don't propose to read that one out.
Have you got something? Have you got to play something?
I can put it up on the. Hopefully, I can put it up on the chat. Sorry. I'll take me a moment to work through that.
This probably gets to your point, Artie, a bit, because obviously they're asking for traps again, they're a different type of trap. So we've got the flipping trap, the good-natured trap.
And I was thinking about the stability that we found.
Yeah. Who knows about traps?
Sorry, you go, Sydney.
Can I speak?
Yes, sure.
Oh no, just I thought Mike would be here. I know Mike Prince from Maha College, and he's been there for a few years, just a couple of years after I was there. And since then, maybe about 10 years now, he's been putting traps up Manhattan and all the area, all by himself. Like I think he actually wrote on the application that he has put his own money into this, and some of the school kids helped to check the traps and build the traps as well. And the technician there was also helping out. So he has done a lot of work towards this. And yeah, I think I haven't talked to him, where I just read his application, but I know him, and I know that he's been doing a lot of work out there. So it would be great if we could approve his project as well.
It's a good character reference. Thank you, Sydney. Ange?
I highlighted a couple of things. The 40 trap boxes that were made by the Year 10 students at Mount Hart College. One of these students regularly checks trap lines, so that's awesome to read. And also, they reference an article which was published on the 15th of August describing the project, and that within 5 days it had brought 5 new volunteers to the table. Whilst I take on board what Artie's talking about, if we want to coordinate and have trapping libraries and so forth, that's another administration requirement, and that takes a lot of time. So if these traps can go direct to these people where they've already generated a lot of energy and activity and buy-in, we don't need someone sitting in the middle of it, because it's just another person trying to. So, and what you probably haven't had the opportunity to see behind the scenes is the amount of work and collaboration that's already happening. So DOC have had meetings up there, ADC have hosted some of them, ECAN have been part of them. So there's quite a cohesive community thing happening organically, and they are working in together. But I wouldn't like to see you give them the traps and then somebody else has to do that with it, because it's all that takes time. And then are we going to resource the person to do that?
Chris?
Yeah, no, very supportive of the work. Yeah, just coming back to the general trap issue, if we're going to do trapping, we've got to keep on doing it. You can't just do it, get the numbers down and then walk away, because things come back in. So for the reasons these guys, this group are doing it, it's a neat part of the bush and looking after that. So going to a library type of approach, I think these traps are going to be out there for many, many years doing their job regardless. I've seen some of the trapping they've done up, they're protecting kiwi up near Wakatani, and they need thousands of traps over areas, and so they might move them around, but I think to do things, it's a long-term investment in some of these areas if there's the protection. So I'm very supportive of this approach. But I get the argument too also about how do we facilitate that? It might be in each year that we put a certain amount aside to saying if we're going to do trapping, there's only so much we're going to support into that role. I don't know.
It's interesting. I'm not a trapping expert, but even on this slide here, you see the different types. It'd be quite good maybe the next meeting or one meeting just get a one page a day or something with the different pictures of the different traps.
Oh, yes.
It's a matter of interest. So we know what we're talking about, but obviously I can see the head one, the new flipping Timmy possum trap, must be the top left, I presume, but there's a big range of them. So, well, anyone else wants to talk to it? So Chris, are you going to move? We
I'll
support
move it if you like.
We're a seconder for that. Ange, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So that's approved. Funding, awaiting funding.
Okay. So I did share that on Teams. It probably didn't work that well, but I will stop sharing that now.
So we got all the effort.
Yeah, I know. It took me a while to figure it out, but anyway. So now we're on to number 4, Pudding Hill Stream. Apologies from Dr. Christian Chukwuka and Donna Field can't be here today. We haven't got a presentation. This one is on page 17 and it's for chemicals for continuation of the weed control.
So, Councillor Wilson or Richard, you'll have a comment on this because this is Dr. Christine from ADC, is it?
Christian, yeah.
Christian.
Yeah.
So you funding, have you put some funding into this too, or? No. So he's working for, he's here. No. That's Brent.
That's, yeah.
Loading up your
Brett's
Brent,
on the- Brett's on
you must
next.
have had a haircut, I didn't recognise it straight away. He had a shave or something, he looked sharp.
Yeah, it's the low lighting.
So, Richard, is ADC doing some different funding, or he's come to us rather than you, or is there something here, or do I know nothing, or?
So it's come out of the biodiversity group. They put all the different people in there, put forward different proposals, and this was one that the biodiversity group has put forward. It hasn't come directly from the council, it's come from the biodiversity group. So it's, the stream is not through council, it's through the biodiversity group, if you understand? Yeah.
Got any comments or more background, or? So it's really follows some thing, it's more weed control, isn't it?
So, so the funding will go towards chemical purchase and contractor hourly payment. And there'll be some in-kind ADC and ECAN. So do they get independent contractors in, or is it, because there should be some efficiencies of purchasing chemical at bulk. I imagine that they're mindful of that and taking advantage of that. It stays within those bigger opportunities to bulk buy. Just the bulk. So this is ECAN and ADC. And so they would bulk buy chemical, I would imagine. So that.
I don't know the details. Sorry, I will think
There's a contractor who does it, the contractor does do it.
It's interesting reading the application, isn't it, because it sounds like we're buying chemicals.
Yeah.
Be interesting to know what sort of in-kind contribution looks like. This is the group funding everything for it, does that be right? I know there's 13 group members are in the advisory group, but what other work, voluntary work is actually done up there? Or by others other than this funding? Don't doubt that, what a wonderful project it is.
So, Angela, is this covered in the catchment group, this area as well?
It's a bit of a grey area if I've got my map right, because I think it's partly in the foothills and partly in the Mount Harding groups.
Right, yeah.
So it could be cut across a couple. But so Christian sits on that ADBAG group on behalf of the zone committee. So maybe he can answer some of the in-kind components of it, of where that discussion got to. Were you at the last ADBAG meeting? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
exactly. I think
I'm looking at you, saying the wrong name. Hardy, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll need to look back at the minutes, but I do remember it coming up, and Christian has presented it.
sorry, I'm just looking through the original application. So it's made up of travel and mileage, $800, labour unit for 2 persons, 3,500, consumables, 2,400, miscellaneous contingency, 670. Project administration costs are covered by staff on the organisation, that's 1,575. So that's what it's made of.
Well, what do we
According to-
think?
Is this
Sorry,
one
what-
anything to do with the Stockwater races, Pudding Hill? No, it's a different part. That's cool.
Perhaps the delivery, that perhaps to inform, delivery says weed control was undertaken by Linter Services over 5 days in March 24 to remove the listed weeds above, which is the weeds we talked about. Delivery was only within the proposed ground, so it's done by an organisation that does it, by a private contractor that does it.
Well, does someone want to move it? Not sure. Well, it looks like we just, what do you want to say, David?
Did we get, I'm stretching my memory, but did we give funding to this in the last financial year or the year before?
Yes, we gave $8,000.
Yes, that's right. So it's a continuation of that work. I think we probably thought it was quite important back then and may not want it to go backwards. That's the only thinking I've got.
Well, maybe if no one's jumping out of joy about this, maybe we just hold this over and I'll look up the previous funding we gave and just see what it's for to make sure we're not just ongoing buying chemicals every year. And just have a look. So do you make a note? So what do we do? Just
Could we put this on the table and
Yeah.
get them to come and present so we can ask the questions
yeah,
about a bit more about the project?
and look up last year's one.
We could leave it on the table. The other thing is while we're working away here, I can try and see if I can find the other
Oh yeah,
application.
okay, that'll be good.
Yep.
You do that.
Okay. Now we welcome Brett to talk about the application HH Wet's application for weed control or maintenance.
Just to clear conflict here.
Thank you for the opportunity to come on in. I was here recently, and I guess just a couple of things from that. Firstly, until a couple of years ago, the trust was funded by a combination of central government, regional and local rates, and that was to recognise that not only are the trust doing local good, but there are wider benefits, both in terms of learning and in terms of biodiversity, climate, etc. as well. In the last 2 years, the trust has been funded only from local targeted rates, except for the addition of the grants coming from the Stone Committee. And so the trustees are very keen that where there are wider benefits to the work that we do, that wider funding is sought to add to the local ratepayer funding. So that's the first thing. Second comment is when I was here last, I was using an analogy of a three-legged stool to talk about ecosystem health, and the core functions of the trust are the water quantity and quality aspects of that. But again, trustees have recognised that without the third leg of the stool, that being the habitat, that the first two legs of the stool can't fully hold up ecosystem health by themselves. So, in other words, we need all three. And so, where there are permanent or semi-permanent, permanent sites established, such as you can see up on the screen, this is our South Hines near River Recharge site, we plant them out. And this site, and so this is one of our earlier plantings up the top, that fully through maintenance. You might remember from the report, all of the plants that are going in the ground, we are achieving greater than 95% survival because of the work that Brailsfords do, both in terms of the planning and the maintenance. The second slide here, this is, so in the first slide there's no more maintenance required, just about. Second slide here, this is where we have newer sites that are still undergoing maintenance. It's Kahikatea based habitat, wetland habitat up on the top left. You can see a lot of grass competition for those, which we may need probably 4 years of maintenance to keep on top of, and then a wider variety, lowland, swamp and drier areas on the right. So these are two tributary wetlands of the Hekio Hinds. So those are two key sites that we are committing to maintain through to maturity, and seeking assistance to help with that. This is another site that is through the maintenance period. This is on Lenny's Road, and this is what we do with lateral recharge races, and could do with multi-use water races too. So carex in the front, and then the shrub species sitting in behind.
So Brett, is that coming in or out? Is that water?
This is down near the bottom end of the recharge race.
Right.
Yep. So the water comes towards it, and it hits the bunds, and it settles, and the water recharges down. Yep. So the Hinds River's just in behind us here. And the most recent plantings have been up at what we call the pilot site, corner of Fraser's and Timaru Track Road, on the left of this picture. This is the first section of water race that has been officially sanctioned for a trial of planting to eventually replace cleaning. You'll see the banks have been rebatted, and that gives the carexes their best position to outcompete the aquatics. And then you've got the second line in behind, and some more lines that went in after this photo. And lastly, for the larger sites, Brailsford brought down their planting machine, which is a fine little piece of kit for getting a lot of plants in the ground in a hurry. And so on the right-hand picture, the Manchester Recharge Basin's on the right, and the Dewhurst irrigation ponds on the left. So this is a joint project with them to plant up some larger species in the area between the two. So again, these are going to, we're moving some irrigation pipe there this afternoon, because we think it's going to get a bit dry for them over the summer, but they're also going to need some maintenance over the next 3 to 4 years. We have appreciated support to date, including last year, to keep this going, and so are back requesting to be part of the mix again.
Can I go first? Yep. Why wouldn't this be considered as business as usual for the HH Wet? You know, because that's, you've got all this, you've got the money from the rates from that whole district. Why wouldn't it be considered as, you know, where some of the other people don't have income streams at all? They've just got where they can find it. Whereas this is a, you know, that isn't that one of your core directives, should almost say, to, you know, you listed the things that HH Wet's supposed to do. You know, why?
Yeah. So yeah. As I said just before, the core functions of the trust under the objectives of the trust are focused on water quantity and quality aspects of ecosystem health. So the trustees regard this as a value add to the sites, but also with regard to, as I said, the ecosystem health, have accepted that the two legs of the stool are not sufficient. So, yeah, you may recall from when you were on the trust, Richard, that the trust objectives are do not have biodiversity specifically as a core function.
Brett, just where you said the funding we used to help maintaining up to 15,000 plants. So you're talking about your stall. Is this? Do you think this will be ongoing, or this is really just help the establishment, and then, I mean, do you think you'll be back next year to keep these going again, or do you think this is going to do the job?
So we've got more than 20,000 plants in the ground now across the current sites. About 5,000 of those are through the maintenance period, through the 3 to 4 year maintenance period. We've got some who are a few years into it. We've got some just starting on their journey. We have big plans for next year once consents are through to be building more sites and therefore planting. And so, yeah, the question from trustees will be ongoing, which is the value adds, the important but not core functions of the trust, how are they to be funded, and where there are opportunities to seek assistance with funding, with part funding, then it will be my job to front those. So to answer your question, there's a good chance that there will be a lot more new plants in the ground, and we'll be seeking assistance wherever it's available.
Hopefully I'm not being too political on this answer, but given the cost that the regional council is throwing at you guys for consenting, would it be safe to say that you'd be able to do all the stuff yourselves if you weren't having to use regional council money for the consenting and now using regional council money to help do the biodiversity stuff? Is that a reasonable way to put it, or?
It's a wonderful question, which I should politely decline to answer, I think.
Okay, but do you see it as being ongoing requirement? The trustees are putting the plants in, but there's an ongoing requirement to get more funding because they can't use the trust money for this, or?
Well, obviously, a significant budget has been moved this year from, shall we say, productive parts of our business into other parts of the business. Yes, that is a simple fact. It would be great if there were another opportunity with central government to be able to bring money into this area, as has happened in the past, to be able to fund these mountains to the sea pathways and things like that. It would be marvellous if that were there. Unfortunately, it's not there at the moment, and so until the trustees ask me otherwise, we will be continuing to do what we know works well where we have sites, which is the value add.
Just a question. You've got this picture up here, Brent. I'm just interested to see. Saw some of the ones on the edge of water race. I understand that because that's sucking the nitrates out and it's habitat. Is this one beautification, or has it actually got a reason? Because that's a pretty hungry bit of ground you've got it there, and really I'm struggling to see the point in planting this bit. I understand the other ones makes perfect sense because you're doing a lot of good. This one I struggle with. Is it just beautification, or has it got a reason?
Great question. It has many reasons. So on the side of waterways, obviously we're focused on fish ecosystem health, but also the nearby insect health, which help feed the fish, of course. The other key living creature which we're seeking to support mountains to the sea through the corridors are the birds. And we have found that a little postage stamp worth of biodiversity in a small garden does not necessarily attract bird movement through the catchment. When you reach a certain size, the birds come in a hurry, and we have been astonished up at the South Hinds site with the bird life that has returned or come for the first time, probably returned to that site, and how quickly they came in. And I've mentioned in the past the variety of species, the special birds, the marsh crakes, the Australasian bittern, the bellbirds, the white heron, all of those birds coming back in. And so the Near River Recharge and the Manchester Recharge sites generally have some land around them which is sufficient for these more significant planted areas. And because they are also beside some sort of water race, be it irrigation or stock water, they're then connected to those other pathways, the waterway pathways that can also be planted up.
What's the for Ange?
Just a question. I suppose when I see how you're protecting the waterways, and ultimately the goal with the riparian planting is less maintenance, or ultimately no maintenance when it gets up and going, surely that's not too much of a stretch from core business to ultimately you're going to end up saving, aren't you, because you're putting that in place. So I see that as an investment. Stephen Brailsford's very good, exceptional in his field, and that's where you get the 95% success sort of guarantee, if you like. But is there, because the ongoing maintenance is a lot, and travel and everything else, is there a local alternative for the maintenance that we could look to support mid-Canterbury and save anywhere, Brett?
We've been talking about this for a long time, and I've known Stephen for a long time, and his staff would prefer to be working closer to home and spending more of their day doing things on the ground rather than sitting in a vehicle. I'm aware of that, he's aware of that too. Unfortunately, there is not at the moment, a few years ago, there was certainly a local contractor who did this also. And I am aware of some others around the place. I have yet to see at scale their ability to achieve the success rates that Brailsfords are achieving. And if we pay less money and have a lower success rate, the problem with dipping down below that sort of 90% is that your replanting requirements are labour and cost intensive, and then they start a new cycle of maintenance again. And so the whole of life cost solution at the moment, in my opinion, is still best where it's sitting. But yes, I would love to see a local option or options, even better, come into this space, because there's a lot of recloaking still, a lot of recloaking potential still here.
I think it's fair to say that the Zone Committee have been a good supporter of MAR. We sort of seen it from the beginning to where you've got it now, and we've always been behind it and helped out. And so I'm happy to move this application and see if we get a seconder. But I think going forward, it probably doesn't mean we're going to keep doing this. We've got it started. We've put the 3 legs on the stool. You just want to build another stool. And whether we want to do that or not, I'm not sure. So, but under that, looking at things a bit differently at a later stage on this application here, I'm happy to move it for approval if I have a seconder. Is there anyone who second it? Chris? Yes.
I totally agree, Bill. Yeah, I think we've got a signal towards the end of the line of the funding, but yeah, for everything they're doing, they're achieving great things.
Yeah. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have you had any feedback on your consent application?
It isn't formally out, but it has been formally determined that it will be start on the 2nd of December, and it will be at the Ashburton Hotel.
Okay, thanks.
Formal notification should be coming out any day. The decision was made a little while ago.
Just to manage to avoid Christmas Day, have they?
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks. How do you get on with your research?
Well, so with Pudding Hill, I managed to go back and find out, yeah, as Richard said, it was 22-23 financial year, $8,000. They requested 11,800 and we weren't able to fully support it. And I had a look at the contract. So the money was to remove along the axis of Pudding Hill stream bank up to 5 kilometres all wilding pines growing along the riverbanks and on adjacent hillside, all willows, crack grey and basket willows, all alder and poplar seedlings and all sycamore trees on the adjacent plantation forestry area that may potentially spread further along the riverbanks. So it was quite an extensive amount of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, in looking through my things, going back to Chalmers Avenue, it looks like that is a GST inclusive amount, that $13,045. So the really GST exclusive amount should be 11,343. So I'll put that on the spreadsheet at the end so we can view that.
Oh, that's a chart, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, Dave, just going back to the numbers, they'd applied for
They
way
applied
back
so
last year or the year before?
the year before, Pudding Hill, they applied for 11,800 and they were granted 8,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like, I found the agenda. We don't still have the minutes from the August meeting of the advisory committee, but there was a report. They as Dave said, they removed willows, wilding pines, alder saplings, Himalayan honeysuckle, and sycamore. And it was delivered by Lyndhurst Services over 5 days in March 2024. So they're probably looking for the same, more of the same.
Who wants to do something about this one?
There's a decimal point in the wrong place.
Oh, are we on to the last one now?
No, we're still on to this.
Still on Pudding Hill?
Yeah, it's Pudding Hill, because we haven't, it's still sitting here. What's your view, Artie? You're on that committee? You're on the, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the
Do you support this application, do you think?
I support it, but I still see always the reference that we see the Biodiversity Advisory Committee referencing to our funding. I would probably want to see the other way around as well, that we refer people for the Ashburton Council Biodiversity Grant that opens on February. And probably we should send an email to all applicants, making sure that they do know about that grant.
That's a good point.
That speaks to my coordination comment at the start. So I've just gone through your funding matrix you pulled together a wee while ago. So Manawa Energy, there's 100,000, that's specific to the Rakai. So this is just in Mid-Canterbury. The ADC Biodiversity one, Advanced Ashburton have an Ian Glassy Environment Fund, which is about 40,000. There's a new one that's been recently announced where the Moore family have put an environmental fund together. Mackenzie Foundation, theirs is kind of ag and research, but they funded two 5-year periods, I believe, for the Carrots project down at the Harris Brothers in the Lowlands, and that was your bioreactor and biodiversity planting. We can access the Lion Foundation, Mid-South Canterbury Trust and Braided Rivers Community Trust. So if we looked at that pot of money collectively, regardless of who's, whether you're a ratepayer or it's a grantor, collectively looked at that pot of money that's available, which we're not doing, and then kind of talk about, we're not trying to drill into Pudding Hill, best bang for buck, or looking all around. We can say overall, we can't do it all. We know that because it's an impossible mission. Where are the bits we're going to focus? And that's what our zone action plans helped us identify. But if each different group's got a different criteria, are we all moving in the same direction, or are we jaggering off? I'm not too sure.
What I've been saying is not necessarily criteria, but everyone that applies for funding are always looking at what's available at that time. And because a lot of funders like the council are only available once a year, if someone decide to come up with a project even a month later, they'll come to someone else. And that's where the same coordinated approach is required, because there is no long-term view, but always what's available at the moment we need the money, and not what may become available later.
I think what it's telling us is that we don't have to give everyone all the money they want because they can go to other groups. So on that basis, I'll move to approve this one, and then we'll discuss what's the funding. Do I have support for that? Yeah, Richard, seconded, all in favour? Aye, against, carried. Okay. Dave.
Okay, lucky last is the Cloud 8 planting, MHV Water and Cloud 8 Dairy Limited. The whole project is 249k. I've been emailing Mel Brooks while we've been talking. She was hoping to come, but her board meeting's running over. So I asked her clarification on what realistically she's might be, if there was any particular part of the funding that she was looking to us for. She's come back and obviously in a hurry in the meeting said, could they contribute a portion? So 15k is sort of our portion, but I think it's up to us what the portion is. So she's not being specific, but anything to help by the look of it.
Didn't we have in the funding application a question, have they applied to other funding resources? And if that's the case, do you have the answer?
Bear with.
Question I had too, that it's 5.5 hectares on presumably a private land, Cloud 8 Dairy, what will that look like in 5 or 10 years' time? Is there an easement or is it? Because it's a lot of money, isn't it? And Global 8 Dairy, whoever they are. I feel, you know, it's a big number, isn't it? And I would like to see them narrow it down, because I know we're not in that league, but maybe come back to us with a more targeted number that is more realistic to us, because I don't know what everyone else feels.
Comes back to our timeline a wee bit, Bill. I think we've got funding this year. The idea was to get it out this year in case something here with the zone committees, is it?
Yeah. Also,
But
it's got to be spent by December, is that right?
It doesn't have to be spent. It's a kind of a goal. We say if we could commit it before the end of the year, it gives us a little bit of time to get the funding out. But if zone, you know, it's probably almost certain that zone committees are going to change in some way, and so we might be spending a bit of time in the first half of next year figuring out that and working on what that's going to look like.
I'm sort of in the opinion that it's, if we go and look through the other ones, and if there was 10k that wasn't allocated, but I don't know, this one here's quite big, and it comes up to that is all on pretty much private land. Is the community going to have access to it? There's a lot of questions, and I think Mel probably needs to be here, or someone needs to take ownership of, but I don't know if it's all community money that needs to fund this big project.
We've got two members, obviously, who are not going to participate in this discussion. So I'm leaning on what Chris is saying. I think Art is too. I think we just need a bit more information and a bit more relevant to the zone committee, rather than a number that's not in our league. What do you think, Ange?
If we look at the area that it's in and the challenges that the lowlands faces as the canary in the mines and the receiving catchment at the base of all of this, if I was to think about investing in anything to support those communities and those catchments, this is the one I believe we need to focus our energy on in terms of water quality, because we've got some significant challenges in our springs when they pop out of the ground, and I think we're all fully aware of what they are. So is this a proof of concept, and how can we make these significant reductions that have been required? We understand that there's some levers that we can pull. We're doing some constructed wetlands. I like the thinking behind the approach that they are taking, acknowledging it's private land, but I think if we look at what the intent of the project is, on behalf of a larger Hikio Hines science collaboration and discussion that we need to be having. I'm inclined to be more supportive of this than, dare I say it, planting along the margins of the Mar area, if I was looking for bang for buck.
Just a comment that Sydney said we could find a small portion only. And to Artie's question, have you received, or applied for, or received funding from other organisations? They put no. However, we're hoping to apply for the Frontiera Hapori program, and their in-kind MHV will provide in-kind support as both work units, one senior scientist and one race operator, costs for water and soil analysis, and reporting and documentation.
Well, Artie?
That's, as I said, about coordinated approach because, for example, the Waita Action to Impact Fund closed only a bit over a month ago, and it's a shame they haven't applied for that. And regarding, we could leave some money aside because last year we did keep receiving more applications towards the end of the year and the beginning of the next year.
I think Angela, you virtually moved that we support this and then we can discuss what money we got. So are you going to move that we approve it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that. Thanks, Bill.
I'll second that. All those in favour? Aye. As against? Carried. Thank you. That's approved. So that
Could we perhaps have the discussion on that, before we even talk about how much we're going to put out? Are we going to allocate all the money now? Because I thought that was one of the things we'd sort of talked about before. We keep getting bits coming in, bits and pieces all year, and it's impossible to allocate money in bits. You want to say, right, this is our date, this is our money, be in or put up or shut up sort of scenario. And so these people have put up, so now we should be saying, well, okay, these are the projects we have, we approve, don't approve, allocate all our funding, and then it's sort of done, because otherwise in a month's time, someone else will turn up and go, I need some money. Well, they need to be more organised, otherwise it makes it particularly hard for us to allocate our funds. That's right.
Well, I agree completely with that, Richard, because that's what we wanted to achieve. So I think we'd all be in agreement with that. We'll spend the money now.
Can I just go back a step? You've approved it, I get that. But has the project actually kicked off yet? Have they got, or are they subject to us coming up with some funds and then they're going to go and kick it off? They haven't actually applied for any other funds. Did I hear that right? They haven't applied for funds from anyone else yet. So I get it that we're supporting it, but I'm just thinking we can be cautious about that support until we wait until they come up with something a bit more bolder about it. That we're not just putting our money out, then they haven't quite kicked off.
Well, let's do this one first then. Because so what you're saying is we basically like a bit more detail.
There's nothing against the project yet.
No.
What's their commitment to it is always something I ask.
How do we feel about doing our allocations here? Now we've approved them, do we go to each one on its merits and decide whether we give them, say for example, the first one at 8.5, do we just discuss that and give it and do the full amount, or we give it half and then we've got more for later on, these other projects that come up, or do we, how's the best way you guys and girls would like to?
Just thinking, what we did, I think last year, and I've done it again, is I've put a spreadsheet up on the Teams link there, so I can type the numbers in as we go, and we can see how they total up at the bottom. That might make it easier for us to kind of
We can play around, can't we?
fiddle with them. Yep. So the first one, yep, that's Ashburton Forks group, and they were asking for 8480.51 cents.
a good project, well presented by Will, good young guy and everything. What's the feeling?
How do we weight specific to our action plan alignment? So I think that's an important.
They're all aligned, aren't they? Because they're all supporting catchment groups. Which
They're all
is-
aligned, but to a degree. Some are more aligned than others.
That's true.
Well, I think you're talking about pest and predator control being, yeah.
If we take it, all of these are fantastic projects, and we'd love to support them all. But as a Ashburton Water Zone Committee with an action plan, if we go back to our core business, I think we need to be mindful of, if we did a sliding scale of how it aligns, and try and work on that criteria a wee bit, because we're clearly sitting in a room full of conflicted people, which makes it really challenging.
The thing I see though, if we're supporting biodiversity and plants, but we don't support the pest, removing the pests, all the planting and everything will just get eaten and be destroyed. So we've spent some good money on helping the planting, and we don't follow through, and no one else is going to, that project is lost. It's all a link in the chain, isn't it?
Bill, it's all about balance. There's a whole range of things that we can do to support the environment and support the community that pick on different key themes in amongst that, and how the idea is something that's scalable, how we show the way we can do things and taps into energy. It's not all about the Heinz high nitrate levels, it's not all about the Ashburton River, it's not all about that. It's just having a balance that we're supporting lots of things to show the way.
I think, Rich, I was just going to support what you said. You know, that these people have got off their backsides and put an application in, you know, when people can't. So, you know, that's why we really only can deal with what's here in front of us. So, and what you had a comment?
Yeah, I endorse what Chris is saying. If it's almost like our logo is stamped on their projects, that will help them as a project to be, endorsed or recognised as a good project. So that does drive a bit to what Angela was saying about, is the project directly in line with our thing? So you'd hope that when we put money in, it's almost a bit of it is seeding capital, which helps the people do the work, because we shouldn't be, paying for work sometimes is a bit, if it's a project with the people involved, they'll be doing the work and just giving them resources, which what's the story? You give a man a shovel and he can do it, or give him a net in that sort of scenario. If we can do that, we can actually factor it up by a number of times. Whereas just doing one thing and that's the end of it, we spent the money, only got one outcome. Whereas if I think the trapping one, you put money into that, you only put $500 in, but if it's used, the time that people spend trapping is a added value to it all. So I'm just seeding capital is my key word I'd use.
Using your key word, what would you do with application one?
Yes, I think some of the projects have included all their cost. That one's just included the physical cost of the traps, and if you factored that up, some of the other bits that they're putting in is actually an extra, almost that project is not just 8,400. It could be a much bigger project if you put down the time and all the effort put in. Whereas if you're doing spraying, you're only perhaps talking about the spray, whereas the labour is something that's been charged for. So that one there is not charging for its labour. So I'd support that one wholly, because I think it has the factoring up of it's quite large, and it's also the growing of that group.
Richard's moved that we support application one. I'll second that. Do we have, so that's seconded, so all those in favour? Aye. 8,480, they're for application. Is it all in favour? Aye. What Sydney said, I would support all applications and distribute the funding accordingly. Yeah, recall that Chris did that. Okay, so that's that one done. Dave, next one.
So Chalmers Ave, Trevis Road. So that's Ross Hawthorne's one.
We've got enough money to support them all except them. You could do that, sorry. You could do, David, you could do a running total, but as I roughly worked it out, we go to the 1, 2, 3, all of the 5 is 42,000, which leaves 7,000 at the bottom.
You want me to just copy those?
Yeah.
Copy those.
If we reach number 3, it might be easier to approve because it's slightly less than the average of 8.
Yeah.
And what they're doing, I move number 3. Sorry.
Oh, that was a method principle, that's only one. Do I have a second for that one?
Hang on, is that the 737?
Yeah. No, it's a 5. 5, 5, 8, 9. Number 3. Yeah. And Sydney's typing. Well, she'll be quick enough. Type, Sydney.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask a question because it went offline a little bit and I didn't hear if that was all the applications or are we waiting for any more applications to come? Because there was a deadline for the applications to be through, wasn't it?
Yeah, we advertised a deadline, and so that has passed. So that has been advertised externally, that's the deadline, and so people can't really expect another opportunity. Though if we didn't allocate this, we would open it up again.
Okay. So that works well then, eh?
So it's been moved and seconded, project number 3 in its entirety. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Yes.
Right.
Number 4 was Pudding Hill.
Can you put a colour code to the ones we've approved or not?
Yeah, I can.
Number 2 and 2.
We've done 1 and 3.
Okay.
If I looked at how much has been done on behalf of the community in that one, I'd rather see money go there than anywhere else that I'm looking at.
It doesn't matter if you can't. You just write a note, yes, beside it, we'll put a Y or an N. Yeah.
So it was, which one was it?
We've done number 1 and number 3. No, we haven't done number 2. We'll just,
It's a bit small, so we can see it.
Yeah, I'm happy to move number 2, the Chalmers Ave Trevors Road River Development.
yes is meant to be the next one down. You happy to move number 2?
Yes.
Okay, second by Artie. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. There's the yeses. Pudding Hill.
Yep. Pudding Hill, so that's 7370. That's the continued weed control.
So if we didn't support this one in its entirety, some of the work would get done, someone would apply for some other funds or?
What would be our reason for not supporting it, would be the question. What would you, why would, what,
I don't know, just putting it
I'm
out.
just putting it out as a discussion, what don't we like?
I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
I don't particularly support this one because I think it's quite one place doing one thing. It's not actually growing the pie, and it's not, the other ones we've said have had, the Rock Hawth, the first one is growing the pie, the Awa Reserve, they're trapping, but hopefully, they've got the school involved, so that's growing the pie. The Hecatory, that one there, well, that's a community right next to Ashburn on the bike trail, so that's growing the pie, you'd hope, and engaging with the community. Whereas this one here is perhaps just it's a greater DOC should be doing it, or ECAN should be doing it anyway.
But I'd hate to see the maintenance work, or if there's any follow-up work required from what they did in March this year, I'd like to make sure that they've continued on with that if there was any mopping up to do. But if it's expanding the project, I think that there's more to other agencies. But that's why I'm not about not funding it. It's more
It's the
about
amount.
to what scale.
Well, let's go down to the biggie, the Mayfield, is it?
I just wonder, is it an option for the zone committee to recommend that project, and it's obviously come via the Ashburton District Council Biodiversity Advisory Group, where we've gone very hard on the biodiversity and our yeses so far. Would it be appropriate to recommend that to the ADC Biodiversity grant round when that opens up? Because it probably sits very nicely within their criteria, I would imagine, whereas some of those other ones perhaps don't. So where else could it fit if not here?
Just in terms of the how it fits with our action plan, just reading that the impacts of the project. The project is important to protect the natural environment around the river margin and prevent weed infestation and further spread up and downstream as they compete with native and smothered tree shrubs. The process will improve the ecosystem and sustainability of the riverbank and adjoining forest health. So it is quite related to the river.
Can we be a little bit cheeky here and take up Andrew's point and send the application to ADC along with our amount that we're prepared to fund, and ADC can then either add a bit more to the pot or say, no, well done, zone committee, you're on your own, or if you have any views, Neil?
There's no more to go in the pot.
Okay, so that, all right, so we're better off to deal with it here. Well, why don't we go down to the next two and see what sort of funding we're going to give them, and then we can go back to that one and say if we're going to give them a little or nothing. Is everyone happy about that? So we'll move down to the HH wet one. Okay. So what's our feeling on this one? I think I made it clear that they're not to keep coming back on the same sort of lines. We've done our bit to get it going. We're supporters of Marne. It's struggled a bit with, the consenting process and everything, and I think I'm in favour in this case of supporting it in this application. What's everyone else's views?
But I'd just make the comment that I'm conflicted because I am a ratepayer in that half of the county. So if I have to stand back from that, it's a bit odd because that's half the county. But I think they are very well funded. So that is the difference between perhaps some of the other ones that have nil effective funding. They have a rating funding, so it's actually a pretty strong avenue for funding, whereas some of the others have absolutely nothing. Mr. Hawthorne has absolutely nothing. He's doing it out of his pension or pocket money or whatever, however he's doing it. So I think that's the difference I'd make between the two.
Yeah.
And I can't comment on the last one because I'm conflicted.
Oh, no.
So I don't know how to comment on the
You
second
can
last
comment
one.
on this one because your interest in this is no different to mine, or anyone else in the Hines, and so so you can vote and commit on this one.
It'd be good to see us support the biodiversity aspect of it, and that's putting our name to it and helping being supportive of the biodiversity aspect of it.
So do you think half? You're not going to talk on this one, Ange? You're able to, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Only that I'm inclined to agree with where Richard's coming from. Whilst I appreciate HH Wet has a incorporated society or a deed that they're having to put in place, this biodiversity thing, I think has to be part of their, well, in my opinion, should be more part of their BAU. As a ratepayer, I'd see that as a good use of my money. We're just robbing from Peter to pay Paul. We sort of feels like we're going round and round in circles with it. That's not very helpful, but
No, it's not. So have you got a number? You got an opinion? you've got an opinion, have you got a number? What do you suggest we do?
I'll move 6,000.
Yeah, second that end.
Yep, happy to second that.
So we've moved to $6,000. All those in favour? Aye, carried. Okay, thank you. Got the answer, well done. Thanks, Chris. Well, now it makes you think about Mr Hawthorne, doesn't it? Go on his own.
So that leaves us with 31,000 committed, 18,586 left, with the two projects, Pudding Hill Stream and Cloud 8 planting.
Given the Pudding Hill Stream, the commitment to it, I was sort of leaning along to like half of it, but I'm thinking like if we support it to the tune of 4,000, at least means they can make the decision, are they going to carry on looking after what they've already done, or get some more funding if they want to do the whole project.
I'm inclined to support the project because, you know, they've actually got a project, they've done a bit of work on it, and we'll see in time whether we're right or wrong, but I don't think we can get into too much trouble by not supporting it.
Okay, so I just look at the figures again for them. Look, labour 3,500, consumables 2,400, and miscellaneous 670, which is a 10% contingency.
It is a local district thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can't sort of say, oh, we won't give you money. Well, you could say, don't give them money for labour, or I don't give you consumables, or you just give them an amount and they pare it back if you're going to go less.
Well, I think, you know, I think we should support it because it's in the district. The ADC's fund's not there. We've got the funding. But, you know, whether we drop 1,000, really neither here nor there. So I'd move that we fund it in its entirety. Does anyone else agree with that? Chris? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thanks very much, everyone. And we've just got the last one. So we've got two directors who can't speak to it. Is that correct? One director in it. Oh, Neil can. All right. Well, Neil, you might like to lead this one off then.
You haven't got much money left, and do you want to disperse it all
Bill,
now?
Sydney.
can you confirm, because I remember the MHV came and have applied for funding before, but I think we haven't actually funded them any time that they came to us, or am I wrong? Do you remember?
Very early on, we funded a nitrate probe for, it was going to be O'Shanassy's, it got moved over to Montgomery's, it's still being used there. And that's the MHV probe, 10,000, but I think that was probably, I'm going to say at least 4 years ago.
Right, and I think Mel Brooks came and asked for something else, but I think we did not fund that project. It was another probe, wasn't it, that she asked?
I don't think so, Sydney, not from my recall, it was just that one for the community wetland idea.
I don't recall either, Sydney, sorry.
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they are doing looks like a big project, and we don't know how much they're expecting us to support. But maybe could we give them a hand and just maybe give them like $5,000 or something like that, since we have some funding available?
We've got 11,216 left. We've got no other applications in front of us. If we don't spend it somewhere, ECAN probably won't give us so much next year. I don't know. It's a big. They're a big part of the community.
Yeah,
They do a lot of good.
I'm behind it. I just know what we're staring down the barrel of down there. So I'd be inclined to move the full balance go towards Cloud 8
Would you like to second that, Sydney?
Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, if there's no other applications and then they submitted this application, I think we should, yes.
Good, thank you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Hardy.
Yeah, I looked at their details and I don't think it's really within our scope to spend the money on fencing or mulching. So I would like to ask them to earmark the money that we give them for plants.
Okay, correct.
Yep.
Make
Yeah,
an
that's a
amendment.
good idea.
Make an amendment to money to go into plants or planting, but not anything else. Okay, well, on that proviso, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks, Sydney, for sorting that one out for us. Very helpful. So that's great.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. For it's
Not much left to do now.
all going to be done by 3, Chris.
Media update.
Unless you're going to hold us up. Thanks for everyone for your patience and working through that. It was a good result, I feel. We've done a good job. Okay. Dave, what's next?
So last item is committee updates on page 24 of the agenda. Things to note in there are probably the Green Street. There was a response regarding the effect on O'Shea's Creek. So the answer to that is in there.
What's your answer to
Marcelo's,
that?
There's a better question than a response.
I thought Marcelo might have been here, but he's not. And then the Methven Lions Club, that was one we were asked to make a decision on and we deferred it. The good news is I've spoken or emailed Megan Fitzgerald from the community board this morning, and they've granted 9,200 including GST, and there's some other funding that's come through as well. So we're back to where we were. They're going to spend the money on the plants as we originally approved.
That's good.
So good outcome, that one.
Can we just go to the number 1 in your report
That
about
was
the
number one.
zone committee chairs meeting on Wednesday online on Zoom? Unfortunately, I can't make that meeting. So, I'm just going to that. So Chris, are you available as deputy chair? Yeah, it's on.
Yep.
And so we want another, so anyone else in the committee would be interested in going on that Zoom committee? It's on the 30th,
So it's 6
Wednesday.
p.m. So it's after hours.
6 p.m. till 7. And it's really, I think it's, Neil, you might know, it's an update on where they got to, you don't know? Okay.
Yeah, it's just Martin who's running the project, giving an update on where we're at. I know the 4 mayors and the 3 Reinranga reps that are on the working group, they met yesterday, I think. So things are progressing quite well. So it's just to keep you guys informed.
Are you available to be on that Zoom?
I have another meeting, but I can cancel that.
I'm happy to attend if that's helpful.
Yeah, okay.
I see it as a very important discussion for us to be part of.
I think if you want to get on as well, I don't think there's a problem. But so,
No, it won't be a problem.
yeah, so it's open to everyone, but so Chris and Ange and Artie will hopefully listen in and report back. That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll make sure you get an invite.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Completed. I think everything else.
Just one query, Bill, on number 6, is the query ECAN at the Ashburton Lyndhurst hearing, noted, etc., and asked for ECAN staff to come and present on those factors that considered, etc. And the note is underneath that staff are unable to present, and that was in last report as well. Are they unable to present or are not coming to present? What's the real answer, Dave? Do you know?
I'm not 100%, sorry. With Jamie being away, I hadn't followed up on that. I think it was more of a time commitment issue than anything, but I'll follow up.
I think that comment, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that comment made at the Ashburton Lyndhurst hearing by Environment Canterbury? Is that why we're asking them to substantiate how they came to that,
That's correct.
making that comment, yeah. So they must have some facts and figures behind it to even make that
That's the
comment,
point, yeah.
Understand.
how they came to it.
Let's,
Yeah.
let's re-ask the question because they haven't answered it and we'll just, they can come as soon as they can come, but next meeting will be good.
Yeah, they've had, the last meeting, same comments, so they've had 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And the next comment about Green Street as well, it's,
Yeah.
It's not.
it's not an answer.
No.
That's not an answer from a regulatory body. That's not an answer.
So 6 and 7 we're not happy with and we'd like someone to come and actually front up.
They put a little bit of thinking into
Yeah, bit of
something
effort, yeah. Instead of AI.
and wrong they are.
If they're going to do things, as we all do, we've all got to play by the rules.
Yeah.
And we need facts to back up our statements.
Yeah.
And if we want to be credible, then that needs to be there.
You would have thought they could just generate the facts, couldn't you? If it was facts-based judgment, they should have had them.
That's right, then we have.
Yeah. But we're not happy.
Can I just put a question, an alteration to that question for point 7? It was the emergency powers this year, not last year.
You're not allowed to use them this year. There's
No,
no
but that
emergency.
was, what were the environment following the enacting of the emergency powers this year?
And we know they've told us there won't be an emergency this year.
Yeah.
That's good. We don't have to worry about the fault line or anything like that.
No, it'd be good.
Okay.
There was number 9 over the page too, I just realised, which was the request for the zone committee to be on the working group for the zone committee review. So I guess the official response is that no, the working group is a Mayoral Forum leadership grouping. So it's made up of 4 members, 4 mayors and 3 Runanga reps. So there isn't an opportunity for the zone committee to be on that. And also there is a potential conflict of interest there in the fact that that group is determining the future of the zone committee and people on the zone committee are paid to be on the zone committee, so being a little careful about that. Yeah, and there may be another opportunity once the decision has been made by the Mayoral Forum for more involvement with the zone committee in some sort of capacity, so we don't really know what that looks like yet.
I don't accept the conflict of interest because your conflict could be both ways. You could think, you could be on the zone committee and think it doesn't serve its purpose, or you could think it's good, but surely when you're reviewing something, you would have someone who actually sits on the committee. But having said that, I did ring Cam Smith and talk to him about it, and I think 2 of the mayors that are on it are on zone committees, and so some of the Runanga representatives, so there are zone committee people in it, so I felt happy.
Yeah, oh cool. Yeah, that's
I looked
good.
at the minutes, I thought, heavens, who's meant to do that? I didn't find the other page.
And the other last thing on there is, so the next scheduled meeting, and the last one for the year, is the 26th of November. So I'm not sure what we'll have on the agenda for that yet. At that stage, we may not know the outcome of the Mayoral Forum decision. I can't remember the exact date.
They don't
for
move
that.
fast, do they?
No,
They're not quick movers.
I can't comment. It is a big process.
We're still waiting for a report on the boundary drain lines.
Oh yes, boundary drain. So we'll try and bring some of those reports
And
to you that you're waiting for.
plan change 8,
Um,
regional water policy statement.
Green Street, possibly worth a revisit. They have a meeting tonight. Plus, obviously, we've all said that that was a less than satisfactory answer-ish. The Rangitata Revival Project, I'd still like to see that, an update brought to the...
Getting all this, Cal?
No. No. Rangitata Revival what? Project.
We haven't heard of it either.
That's just an update.
Or
You asked-
Rakitata.
You asked me about that last time.
It's been talked about a lot, but to date, I don't think that they've ever come in, other than that meeting we attended in Ealing, I don't think they've ever actually come and brought us an update, so that would be Brad Edwards from DOC. I think it's great that that boundary adjustment thing, whatever the proper words were for that, that prove that submitting and showing up for some of those decisions is worthwhile. We haven't had, yeah, we haven't had too much evidence that we are getting listened to, but that was perhaps a good example of.
All led by the mayor. Can I just follow up
Chris,
for the last?
just a wee second. Have you finished?
Yes.
So this is other business?
Yeah, no. On the calendar for the next meeting,
Yeah.
can we get someone from ECAN to start talking about, it is coming into summer, there's a second year with a plan in place. What is ECAN's approach to it? Over summer months, who are the contact points? All the stuff that we never got last year because it just sort of happened. But it's an opportunity for Stephen Hall or his team or whoever the ones are to come and talk to the community about who the people are involved when there's low
Marcello.
flows. Could be Marcello, could be whoever, but someone with perhaps a little bit that can actually make some bold decisions that we need to.
Yeah.
Points of contact. Second one is, I think it's time for us to start a conversation. Ian McKenzie raised it last time, that at some stage in 2027, I think it is, there's a plan review for the Ashburton River plan. I've heard it. Some people in ECAN haven't heard it. Does the community know that there is a plan review coming up? Can they confirm it? And what do we need to do as a community to start synthesising our ideas as to what's working in the plan and what's not? Because we don't want to wait till 2027 and go, oh shoot, we needed to, but we haven't got the data, we haven't got the thinking, or haven't done the environmental monitoring, what we need to do. Just starting to get ahead of the game. That's just putting it out there for us to start putting on the agenda.
Should we make that an action point for probably next start in January, February next year? That, and is it going near Zipper or what is it?
Yeah.
What's it feed into? What's that process stage?
Is that,
We make it a task, a project that we want to progress.
so the first question for you is to ask ECAN, is there going to be a review on the Ashburton River in 2027? Then if there is, then we jump into action like you suggest and put it in the plan.
Oh, yeah.
And then put it into our working plan, which is the zip, I think. Okay, any other business?
Last week, Matt Bubb wrote an article, and I think it was Central Life or one of the farming magazines, talking about drains. So we have examples with our man-made drains where they go dry and have done since our irrigation practices changed. I'm hearing, well, if I read the article right, there's examples now where if you're deemed hydraulically connected to that drain and that drain's gone dry, then you're not allowed to irrigate. So we've talked about it in the Ashburton. Here's another example with the lowlands drains, which we'd need to do some research, but my understanding is prior to irrigation, those drains could be dry for long periods of time in a dry season. So where we're making decisions and we're actually asking it to do better than nature, I think that those sorts of discussions that are being had consent by consent at the moment could set quite a significant precedent going forward. I can get a copy of that article, and I've got a copy. It's actually a very well written article, and it's something that Matt's having to face on the daily now.
But I think there's quite a few changes to consent conditions as they come up now. It's quite onerous. Okay, although good comments, Chris and Ange. Any other business? I will thank you for your attendance. If you do the correct here,
Excuse me,
please.
could I just hop in?
John.
Who's that?
John B. John online. John B.
Yeah.
Can
Oh,
I,
yeah,
can I
John.
just jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Two quick things. One, I can help you there. Murray Griffiths saying at the zone committees the other night that November the 28th, you'll know what's happening. Well, that's when information's coming out
That's the mill forms.
as far as the future of the zone committees go. And just talking back, going back when you're talking about all the different types of traps, I mean, I could get Tim Exon from the Geraldine office to come along to a meeting or a workshop if you want. He has a display of all the different types of traps set up and how they work and what's the advantage or disadvantage of each. So if you've got nothing on the agenda next month, I could see if Tim could come along.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dave will follow that up.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Cheers.
Okay, Koriki.
Okay, unihia. Unihia, unihia, unihia ki te uru tapanui o tāne. Kia wātia, kia māma, te nako, te tinana, te wairua I te ara tākatu. Kora rā e rungo, whakaaria, aki ki runga, kia tina, tina. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.